Thank you. Alrighty. Good afternoon, all. Thank you for joining us today to our May CWG meeting to talk about VTA BART Silicon Valley Project Phase 2. A reminder that this meeting is being recorded, and we are very appreciative and grateful that you're here today. Okay, so to kick it off today, I just want to make a note that we have restructured the format of this meeting today per feedback that we received today. And so we are looking to make it more of a conversation and definitely introduce more dialogue into this meeting. And so just wanted to bring that to your awareness. With that, this is the overall agenda, but know that there is going to be a lot more space for all of you to provide input and feedback and just have a conversation with all of us here. So we are going to be kicking it off with our welcome and introduction. We have some space there for transit-oriented communities grant update to share their CWG group polls. We will also be talking about the VTA board referral, some early construction activities, and then we will close it off with our CWG member report out and talk next steps. So before we dive right in, why don't we go ahead and allow our CWG members to please introduce yourselves, start by sharing your name and also your organization or the community you represent. So let's see, I don't see Bill. Chris, do you want to kick us off?
All right. Somebody changed my title from Mexican School of Arts and Culture to the School of Arts and Culture at the Mexican Heritage Plaza. I know it's long, but I want to get that one right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're checking in.
We are introducing ourselves. Introducing yourself to everyone here in the room.
Sorry, I'm the director of the of community engagement, community development.
Thank you, Chris.
Welcome, Chris.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see Chris Patterson. I'm not seeing Connie. Is Danny Garza on the call here? Okay, I don't see him. David, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, David Vieira with Five Wounds Portuguese National Church.
Welcome, David. Thanks for being here. Okay, I don't see Dee. I don't see Elma. Ed Berger. Helen.
Hi, I'm Helen Masamori, Five Wounds Brookwood Terrace Neighborhood Action Coalition. And also today I am putting the hat for Connie since I'm a co-president of Alum Rock Santa Clara Business Association.
Beautiful. Thank you for joining us. Isamar, is she here?
She's not, but I am here on her behalf. Damone Jordan from Cristo Rey San Jose Jesuit High School. And yes, I have an AI that I am bringing to meetings to help me capture notes and summarize, etc. So you see my AI in the chat. It's intended to help track things and keep notes. So
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Damone. Jesus Flores. I do not see him here. Justin Triano. Marisa Diaz. I also don't see her on the list of attendees here. Ricardo, have you joined us? Okay. Terry, is Terry on the call?
Actually, Ricardo should be supplanted or replaced by Elsa Oliveira from the Portuguese Community Center, Poso.
Okay, thank you for that note there. Okay, and then, I
was just going to say, David, if you could provide us with her contact information so we can make sure that we get her on the list, that'd be helpful.
I believe she contacted Kristen a while back.
Okay, sounds great.
I'll resend it to you, Erica.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good. Thank you, David. Okay, and if we don't see Terry here,
Terry,
Okay.
Terry's out of pocket in London until July.
Okay. He's having a really good time then. Okay. All right. And then, okay. Is there anyone from Somos Mayfair on the call? All righty. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us and introducing yourselves. Let's go ahead and move on to our section on transit-oriented communities grant update. Melissa, passing the baton to you.
Thank you so much, Marissa. I'm Melissa Cerezo. I'm the program manager for transit-oriented communities in VTA's Real Estate and Transit-Oriented Development and Communities Department. I lead the Transit-Oriented Communities program, and I'm also the Transit-Oriented Communities Grant Administrator. It's a pleasure and an honor to talk to you all about this grant, because at the heart of this grant, we want to lift up our local community champions, the connectors, the bridge builders, and that's all of you. We value you as a partner. We honor your continued commitment to strengthening your communities, and we value what you bring to VTA and this CWG. I'm getting some chat messages that I sound far away. Do I sound like I'm in a different state? I will change my audio.
Sound a little far, but you're clear, but you sound a little far.
Okay, does this help any if I speak into? No. Okay, let me try to pivot real quick here. My microphone. How about now? Any better?
That sounds
Perfect.
really good. That
All
sounds
right.
really good, Melissa. Feel free to prompt me when you're ready for the
I
next one.
don't want that little technical difficulty to gloss over my message to you all. Some of you may already have heard about the Transit-Oriented Communities Grant, which was released on April 1st. The deadline is fast approaching. It's next Wednesday, May 22nd. That's next week. But first, I want to define what transit-oriented communities are for VTA. Transit-oriented communities are mixed use, mixed income, equitable communities within a half mile of transit stations where people of all ages and backgrounds can live, work, learn, shop, and play, and have all the necessities of daily life within a 15-minute trip by walking, biking, rolling, or transit. It's an approach with multiplying benefits. It reduces the need to drive. It increases transit ridership. That reduces greenhouse gas emissions and promotes health and well-being. This grant is about accelerating our shared vision of thriving communities, healthy and accessible places, and prosperity for all next to transit through the power of partnerships. I have my teammate, Adriano Rothschild, who's been diligently working with me on this. I want to ask him to drop the grant webpage into the chat, which is vta.org/TOC grant. You can learn more about the ins and outs there. I'm going to give you just a high-level overview. So the origins of this grant, let's go back. I think we skipped over one. The origins of this grant comes from the Transit-Oriented Communities playbooks. These were developed in 2018 through 2021 or 2020. And you might recall that these were detailed recommendations for each of the phase 2, BART phase 2 stations. And it called for collaboration between cities, VTA, and our communities to make the most out of this once-in-a-lifetime investment. And so you all made critical contributions to that process, which was formative for our current approach for the Transit-Oriented Communities program. The playbooks, they helped us to understand that transformational transit projects and TOD and TOCs, they have to address community resilience, which include protecting and producing workforce and affordable housing, as well as protecting and supporting our small businesses. We're also building on an approach that came from VTA, our former Community Design and Transportation program. It used a grant program to incentivize great places next to transit. And our next slide is about our approach here, which is driven by our transit-oriented communities policy at VTA, adopted by our board. Our overall strategy here is to build on the success of what we've been doing at our own VTA sites, where we create mixed use, mixed income, partnership powered development. And the goal there for The goal now for the program is to extend that approach to the 1/2 mile area around transit stations, where we can enhance VTA's investments and increase the share of the county's growth to these areas of frequent transit, and doing it in a balanced, sustainable way, a collaborative way with community. Our policy also is very specific. We acknowledge that transit and transit-oriented development, transit-oriented communities can increase the market value of land and housing costs and increase the potential for displacement. And so we want to address displacement and enhance social and economic opportunity for existing and future residents. So we also see very great alignment with regional priorities, such as Metropolitan Transportation Commission's transit-oriented communities policy. This is a formative policy in itself, which requires new policy standards for areas surrounding transit stations in order to continue eligibility for certain MTC funding. On our next slide is just touching on some of the pillars, I believe, of our transit-oriented communities program. We are here to talk about the grant, so I'm going to just continue and discuss what that is. On the next slide, our grant is the Transit-Oriented Communities Grant. This is channeling $750,000 in competitive funding to nonprofits, communities, and local agencies. And it's really to drive these goals of increasing ridership, increasing active transportation modes, advancing equity, empowering communities, creating better, more culturally relevant engagement, really strengthening the identity of communities and culture. And on our next slide is just a breakdown of the 4 program areas where we're trying to spur new and innovative partnerships, which are cross-sector, cross-community, in the hope to remove barriers to advancing equitable transit-oriented communities. These 4 program areas I'll talk about in a moment, but I just want to make it clear we're targeting projects that are located within a 1/2 mile of existing and future VTA light rail stations, as well as commuter rail stations such as BART, Caltrain, ACE, and Capital Corridor. So the 4 program areas, they're effectively 4 grants, are these: planning and policy implementation, which is 50% of our fund, will result in projects like local agency plans, policies, and regulations that implement sustainable and equitable communities around VTA and commuter rail stations. This is going to be open specifically just for local agencies, but they may partner cross-community and cross-sector. The next program area is community resilience. This represents 25% of our funds. This is about lifting up the critical role of community-based organizations in increasing the staying power of our communities next to transit. So eligible projects are going to look like addressing the needs that some CBOs may have today around technical support and capacity building as they are taking on a new role, which is affordable housing, or specifically housing preservation. This is a program area that is only open to nonprofits with a 501c3 status. But again, we do want to see and encourage cross-sector, cross-community partnerships. The next program area is education and engagement. This represents 15% of our funds. This is about strengthening support and advocacy around equitable transit-oriented communities policies, investments, and implementation, and also removing barriers to implementing what we know to be equitable, inclusive, and culturally relevant practices. So eligible projects may look like hiring peer leaders or promotoras to guide decision-making in local projects. This is open to both CBOs and local agencies. And lastly, placemaking arts and activation category. This represents 10% of our fund, and it's about enabling, inviting, and welcoming public spaces around our transit stations, which are our VTA passenger environments, and enhancing them with publicly accessible art or cultural experiences that reflect the vibrancy of those local communities, those contexts that are served there. So eligible projects could look like festivals, cultural festivals outside of transit stations, painted crosswalks or murals along the building walls facing transit. This is open to both CBOs and local agencies. So I'll close by saying we released the grant on Monday, April 1st, Cesar Chavez Day. We've had about 7 weeks in total for the open grant cycle. Our deadline is next week. please check our website, vta.org, TOC grant /TOC grant. We really believe this is going to be game changing in terms of removing barriers, building new innovative partnerships, advancing equitable outcomes, and really learning from and learning with our community partners as we create new pathways to increasing transit ridership and our collective impact moving towards equitable transit-oriented communities. So that concludes my presentation. I really appreciate the time. Again, I value the effort, your year after year contributions to this group, to the CWG, and also to VTA. I'm happy to take any questions.
How is that qualifications works? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Helen. I don't know about
Yeah,
Melissa.
Melissa, were you able to hear that question from Helen? She said, how do the requirements work?
I can chime in here. So for eligibility for the community resilience, education and engagement, and placemaking arts and activation programs, applicants must be 501c3 nonprofits operating in Santa Clara County or partnered with 501c3 nonprofits. Cities or public agencies in Santa Clara County can also apply for the planning and policy implementation, as well as the education engagement and the placemaking arts and activation program.
Thank you
for that, Adriano. Any other questions?
Did you reach out to the 501c3s that are in the immediate area?
We have been reaching out. We have a pretty extensive list that we've put together of various community-based organizations operate in Santa Clara County. We've also seen some representatives of CBOs actually attend some of our pre-application workshops, including some members of the Portuguese band that I know I specifically spoke with one of them who was present at one of our workshops.
Yeah, and David, we gave the team the list of people we've been interfacing with for the design development framework. So all of the organizations like the Sisapore Collective and a bunch of groups around 28th Street, Little Portugal were added to the distribution list.
Great, thank you for that. Any other questions regarding this very exciting grant program?
I just briefly wanted to note that the deadline for this is next Wednesday, but this is the inaugural grant, and we anticipate this being a regular or annual grant program available. So there will be additional opportunities in future years.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Adriano. Okay.
I just wanted to note, sorry, Marissa, there is a question in the chat, Luis. What is the maximum money a nonprofit can get?
Yeah, so the maximum funding depends on the program itself. So for community resilience, that maximum funding is $100,000 per application. For education and engagement, I believe it's $27,500, and for placemaking, I believe it's $15,000.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Luis. Any other questions on the chat or out here that folks want to chime in on? Okay, alrighty. Okay, so moving on to our next section then. Bernice, I'm going to pass it on to you to speak more on the VTA board referral.
Okay, thank you, Marissa. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to
I'm having some reception problems, so I'm going to leave my camera off so you can hear me. Just wanted to touch base with you all and talk about a referral we got from 3 of our board members on May 2nd. And the subject areas that the board referrals covered. There is some direction related to the above ground facilities at the 28th Street Little Portugal station. There was a reference to VTA working with City of San Jose to look at a southern entrance for the downtown San Jose station. Also looking at the above ground facilities at the station, similar to the Little Portugal station. And last but not least, there was some language about our community working groups and the process and how we do that. And based on the board referral and some of the input we recently got as recently as just a couple hours ago today, we're going to switch up our meeting a little bit today and get some input because we feel like this is really important. And I also want to take a minute to introduce Corinne Winter, who has been helping us facilitate a couple of community meetings, and just want her to be present and sort of help us keep a pulse on things and the interactions and guide us as we're sort of looking at some new strategies and approaches. So Corinne, do you want to say a couple words or anything? And then I'll go into our next area.
Sure. I did not prepare anything. Thank you, Bernice. Corinne Winter, my firm specializes in equitable community engagement, really working deeply with community leaders such as all of yourselves. Really pleased to have the opportunity to advise VTA on how to be intentional and continue to be more intentional on creating meaningful conversations with you all and the rest of the community moving forward. Thank you for letting me join your working group today.
Thank you, Corinne. I'm now going to hand it over to Brent in an effort to sort of, before we proceed with our typical agenda, and I know that we did some previous agenda planning, but like I said, I think this is very important. So Brent is going to lead you through some conversations and an exercise and just give you all an opportunity to have sort of a open-ended discussion. So Brent, do you want to take it from here?
Yes. Hello, everyone. So really happy to be here tonight. Thank you for bearing with us as we've kind of changed up the process for this evening to provide some more dialogue to have with you all. We really wanted to have a check-in and kind of have a little bit more open conversation. Probably have about 15-20 minutes to have some kind of open conversation before we provide you some other project updates at the end. You know, typically we do that at the beginning and wanted to provide some more time here at the beginning, recognizing that that's not something we normally do. So we kind of see this as a first step of generally more conversations we want to have. So more intentional dialogue and engagement with you all. And just recognize that, you know, this is such a critical time in the project. There are changes happening. Feedback from the CWGs is really important, and we want to hear from you all how to better engage, because that's key. When I'll be asking you for feedback, just, you know, let's have an honest conversation, recognizing let's give ourselves a little bit of grace tonight when we have this dialogue, right? Because this isn't something we've normally done, like have an open two-way. And I think it's too important that we just revisit our expectations before we begin the conversation, right? So as members of the CWG, let's just take a brief look of kind of what we all signed up for, like what the expectations were. And then think about intentionally how we can improve the CWG meeting process, the engagement process moving forward in the dialogue, in the conversation, right? So, you know, we've set this framework for members individually to have roles on the project, how to be liaisons for the project, receive information, right? And you receive that at meetings like this. How do we build a better understanding for you all so you're informed on details of the project? And how do you all contribute to the successful delivery of the project? And then there's kind of a bigger role too for the project, or for, excuse me, there's an individual role for you as individuals too, about being honest in this space, attending. Attendance is important, otherwise you don't get the information. And then disseminating that back out to the community, right? Whether you represent an organization, a church, or whatever group you're affiliated with here today. So this is kind of like in the orientation handbook. And just want to note that, you know, conversation today is this could be different, right? Our expectations, we just want to put out there for you all, that this could be the first conversation in changing how the CWGs function and how we engage with you all, right? So having a conversation about whether that's more in-person meetings, whether there's more dialogue or breakout sessions, less presentation, that's kind of the intent of the conversation we'll move into, right? So after the conversation too, we're going to have a couple of poll questions. They'll be somewhat similar to maybe things that we talk about in the dialogue. And the reason for that is the poll questions are a consistent set of questions that we're asking all three of the CWGs. So we get some consistent answers and feedback and data that we can better inform our board of directors about. Because one of the things we're going to do is be reporting back to them on feedback that we hear from you all about how we engage with you all, right? So those consistent data points and then what you share with us tonight verbally will be really important for reporting them back to the board, all right? So if we can move on to the next slide. So, you know, we really want to hear from you all, and I want to make sure that each CWG member has some space to share. And that's okay if you don't have anything to share. But I think it's important that each member that's here tonight share. I'll also ask too that in the background, the staff that are on the meeting, just for the CWG members, if you could put in the chat what your role is and who you represent, just so CWG members can see that in the background, it might be helpful as we're doing this conversation. David, I see you wanting to unmute. Go ahead.
Actually, I was just going to put my role in the box like you suggested.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks. All right.
But I will add, I might as well since I'm unmuted.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we have to ask ourselves, or VTA has to ask, why there are so few members of the CWG attending.
That's a great question.
When Danny Garza, I know I've known Danny since high school, went to high school together. We know each other very well. When Danny Garza doesn't show up to a meeting, when Danny Garza may have given up on this group, it's not a good sign.
Understood.
And others with whom I've had conversations have also questioned there, including myself. The viability of this group going forward and the contributions, the real contributions that we may be making to BART Phase 2 project effort.
So to sum that up, because we want to take some of these notes on the screen, David, could we say something like, you know, there's attendance concerns, but there's attendance concerns because of maybe questions about members' role, contribution roles. Is that a good?
Whether we're being useful
roles.
Whether what we're contributing is taken seriously, taken to heart by VTA, for instance.
That's helpful. Thank you. So let's put a note up there, team, that captures serious feedback and how that's incorporated into the project. So David, you got us kicked off. Perfect. Thank you, David. Helen, Damone, Chris, any initial thoughts?
And if you don't feel like getting off the mic, feel free to just drop it into the chat as well. That's another option.
Yeah, I think I agree with David. We just want to make clear, you know, what is our role, right? How can we engage, and you know, attendance as well too. So.
Some things we have heard is that, you know, there's a lot of content that's delivered in the meetings. A lot of slides, a lot of information. Maybe not enough time to check in on that information, or an opportunity to ask questions about that information. Is that an accurate reflection? I see some heads nodding, but.
Yeah, that is also maybe if the meetings are in person, we could ask more questions. We can engage better. But yeah, that's true. It's a lot of information in a short time. So yeah, I agree
Seeing
with that.
body language, there's a little substitute for seeing body language.
Yeah.
I mean,
more authentic
whatever,
conversation.
body language,
Yeah.
Impromptu reactions, and you lose that with these. And Zoom served a purpose when we had no other options, but having in-person meetings is.
What you're saying is hearts like I put on the screen aren't enough.
Yeah,
it's
you can't fully appreciate my disgust at times unless I'm in the room.
Thank you. Yeah.
That was a joke, people. You can laugh.
I know. Okay, well, maybe pivoting off that, are there any ideas that our CWG members have to make the meetings more interactive? Anything specific?
I'll jump in.
Thank you. Yeah, Timon, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I guess one concern is ensuring that our community is aware of things that are going to directly impact them. Like, so let's say our next meeting is 2 months from now. I would hope that in this meeting, we were aware of changes, traffic, traffic changes, construction, for example, that would impact our school, that would impact our families, right? Like anything that VTA knows about that's going to affect our community, that doesn't just come via email, or it doesn't just become aware to our families at the very last minute. I think if you have that information and you're aware of it before the meetings, then I think it needs to get shared in these meetings. So I don't know. I'm sort of talking in code. I think there are two things that that our community is pretty upset about, frankly. One of those things is that there was construction planned for next week, right next to our school.
And an important time is our understanding. Yeah.
We were not made aware of the construction. We were not made aware of the times in which that construction was being scheduled. It had a big potential to impact our families.
Please don't open that door again.
Oh, was that a previous conversation? I'm sorry, I wasn't here for that. But I think that it's really, really important that information gets disseminated and shared at these meetings. I believe it's VTA's job to over communicate. And so like the communication needs to happen here, it needs to happen over email, it needs to happen in all the ways.
Let's write that down, team. Yeah.
Are necessary for our community to be aware of the changes, right? I think people receive information in different ways. Some of that needs to come through the meetings. Some of that's going to be, communicated through mail, email. I just think it's really important. So, so one of the things I'm looking forward to in this meeting is what do we have to, what are our families going to need to account for in the next couple weeks and next couple months. So I'm hoping that this meeting is going to provide me with that information that I can take back to our families and our community. And so I would just say even something like the traffic change on Capitol that started today impacts our families, impacts our students' arrival time. And so even if it doesn't seem directly like it impacts this group, I just think more communication, the better.
Yep.
Because it does directly impact us.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge, what you're relaying, you as an individual and on behalf of your community, and that's important. We were going to have a section later in the meeting where we were going to, share you our thoughts on how we can have more personal communication with the school and with the community as a reflection on that. So we'll get into a little more detail on that just later, but hearing it from you directly and noting it here is important. Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, Damone, sorry about my comment. There was a crying baby on the other side of my office door having a complete meltdown. Anyway, I wanted to say, I feel like some of the issues related to not just this project or this group, but this is the meetings in essence have been going on with the community about this project for maybe close to 2 decades.
Yes.
And the people in different roles have all shifted and changed, and the world has changed in 2 decades drastically. And so it makes for some interesting understanding of how is it a meeting? Is this are we having a VTA report back? Is it a conversation? Is it dialogue? And then what is the strategy to make something like that and so long term, make it feel like all the community's investment in the end is meaningful? With one of our last issues about value engineering versus what the community's been saying, it's it's obviously VTA is not a little entity, and there's all kinds of conversations going on even within VTA that half of VTA may not know about at the same time. So I just think we kind of need to rethink the model, especially for something so long and like large scale.
Yep. Agreed. And that's why we kind of wanted to open the floor tonight, Chris, for that exact reason, right? Is like we've had a similar format of these meetings for many years. Staff have come and gone. Many of you community leaders have been present the entire time, right? I was here, I left, now I'm back. So you referenced change. Do you have more? Do you have any specifics for us on ways that we can engage you differently or have a different model for conversation for the CWG for 28th Street, Little Portugal Station moving forward?
I don't think I'm smart enough to let VTA know or all of the folks involved know what to change into. But I do know that in general, my consensus from the neighbors I talk to is the feeling of low income communities of color get walked on and get and just decades of the way it's been has not led to empowerment and leaving a community better. And just wanting that to desperately be different.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge we have another member join us tonight too, Marissa Diaz.
Hi,
Welcome.
yeah, I'm Marissa Diaz, the student representative.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
So just to loop you in, we're having a conversation about how we can make the conversation we're having today more effective for the community, for you as a student leader, for the other community leaders that are here tonight. So heard a little bit from Helen, Timon, Chris, David. What else do we have? We've got Marissa. Do you have any thoughts, Marissa, on some ideas, maybe things you've heard from your peers or others at school about ways you would like your community to hear more about the project?
Yeah, I would say as a new member, very fresh to the group, there are a lot of different email threads that I'm not a part of, and then I hear things from other people and I'm like, oh, there's a meeting this day. So I would say just having like more clarity on where I can find like all the information, and especially with like the different email threads, not being a part of it is really confusing because I'm left out from certain meetings or certain activities or groups. So I would say if there's somewhere some way that would make it just more clear at where or who I can contact to get like all the information. And I think also for people on the outside too, when they're looking in and they're trying to find information and they can't find it, I think that it's something that everyone should have access to, and not just us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is, identifying a clear point of contact for the community, and that could be you or peers or others of where they can come to.
Yeah, so whether it's that point of contact or information on the project as well, it's having a more clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other ways too. Are there better tools to share information with students that would be helpful for us to understand? Is email the best way? It's probably not Facebook from what I hear. Is it WhatsApp? Is it are there other methods that you think could be helpful for us?
I would say for my crowd specifically as students, we use a lot of email.
Okay.
Social media wise, Facebook definitely isn't the way to go for the younger crowd. I would say a lot of young adults and adults are also on Instagram. So I guess some social media, but mainly email, I think
is clear. Okay.
Yeah, it's the most universal way to get through.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. Thank you. All right.
Brent, I was having a conversation earlier, and Marissa brought this to light. We CWG members, we really don't know about the other efforts going on. I mean, we know about some of them, like the design review committee. That's been pushed out.
Right.
But are there other working groups, committees, whatever? Is there one, for instance, for what Damone was alluding to about infrastructure changes in the area, coming construction news? Are there meetings? Are there newsletters, emails, perhaps a calendar, a group calendar, or VTA calendar that shows the whole community, all the public, what is coming up as far as public facing, public involving meetings. Because they're all public. I mean, anybody can show up.
Of course.
That was another thing that we had when we had in-person meetings where members of the public could attend, and some did. I mean, there's Elliot. We all know Elliot. There were some others who won't talk about, but I'm thinking about maybe a calendar of that publicizes, like City of San Jose, City Council calendars with
the
various meetings.
I'm saying yes because maybe it would be helpful for us to revisit with this group all the means and methods that the project communicates with the community, right? So how we distribute information is far and vast, and we recognize too that not everyone has subscribed or is part of all of those channels, right? But reminding you all as leaders of the avenues that are available to you all sounds like that could be helpful, right? So whether it's our digital subscriptions to our emails, to our published events of where we're in the community on our website, to our social media channels. To answer the second part of your question, David, the only other engagement groups that we're currently working with are the design review committees, which some of the members of the CWG are on, but there are no other groups for the project outside of the CWG. But one of the questions could be, is the CWG change in some way to help better facilitate what you just shared, right? So like communicating information out or absorbing more construction information moving forward, right? And potentially as we get started into construction, something like that. I'm just talking out loud.
Yeah,
Does that sound
for instance,
like it would be helpful?
Yeah, for instance, coming up, Monarch Trucking is going away, the slab company is going away.
Correct.
We need more. We need something more than an every 2-month meeting to tell us what's coming up. In fact, I'm finding out from the former owner of Monarch Trucking, the properties, George Honore. I'm finding out what's happening with the now VTA properties from the former owner of the now VTA properties, and that shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
I mean, we should know what the clear plan is when Monarch closes, what's going to be the security measures, our new fences going up around the Monarch parking lot, which is on the VTA right of way that they
understood. Yep.
Yeah, we need that information, and we need you to tell us instead of us prompting you to tell us.
Right. I hear you. So let's write that down, team. We're going to have kind of, a portion of the project where before the contractor mobilizes, the site will be here next to and in the community, right? As some of these properties transition. I think, David, what you're saying is the community and its leaders would like more details about how we'll maintain that site.
Yes, also, all the business who's gonna get affected from the project, right? Business who is gonna be relocated. We don't know. I don't know.
So just to share with you all, so as a public agency, when we're negotiating on relocations and things like that, there's some information that we can say publicly, and there's some information we can't because it's private. It's part of the negotiation, but that doesn't mean we can't commit to being more transparent and responsive to kind of the larger plan, which I think is what I'm hearing from both you, David and Helen. Is that correct?
Yes, because if we work with the community, and then how are we gonna be able to help them if we don't know what's going on, So
understood.
Yeah, and a security guy from VTA sends me an email saying, because I sent something along to, I don't even know who it was, probably Bernice. And I got an email back at me saying, okay, so what are the police reports that you can tell me about of incidences around the now VTA property? I'm like, and I responded like this, I'm honest with the guy. You're the security guy. You have access to police reports, I'm assuming. You have access to the sheriff, which is the VTA enforcement arm. And I just laid it out. I said, we need to know what VTA is going to do to secure the site once these companies move out, and proactively address and address what could be going wrong, and then promptly addressing the things when they go wrong. When you get graffiti up on the upper reaches of Monarch Trucking, which happens all the time, that George Honore used to abate on his dime.
What will VTA do? Yeah.
What will VTA do? And we need an assurance that it will be done promptly.
Yep.
It's the broken windows theory, which has been in and out of favor over the last 30 years. But I adhere to the broken window theory, of which there are many in Monarch Trucking, and I don't expect those to be fixed.
Historic broken windows, yeah. So
Yeah,
David, let me share.
They've been breaking them with increased frequency from the 28th Street side, there's
Yeah.
there's whole banks of those windows that are gone because they know it's coming. They know that.
Yep.
It's just
So
gonna
how
get
about
worse.
this? I'll since we're talking about transparency, I'll share with you what we're doing internally right now, and then we'll note this to have more robust conversation about how we can share information with you. But we've established we're going to be meeting internally, I think probably every 2 weeks to talk about our properties and how we'll be maintaining them before the contractor assumes them. So we have a team that we're mobilizing internally that includes our program management team, our external affairs team, our security folks, and our real estate folks to talk about how to manage those more effectively. So we should, what I'm hearing from you is report back out what our plan is. So we will note that here. I wanted to note that a couple of our real estate peers are on the call, and Jesse, if you are listening, I don't know if you'd like to add anything else to that as a solution or response.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good
You
evening,
want to
everybody.
introduce yourself, Jesse?
Yeah, my name is
Quickly.
Jessie O'Malley Solis, and I'm VTA's Director of Real Estate and Transit-Oriented Development. The property that was being discussed just a few moments ago, previously owned by Mr. Henry, a portion of that, meaning the Monarch side specifically, changed hands to VTA today. So we received the keys for the first time today. Both real estate, VTA real estate staff, facility staff, and security staff all met out at the site to walk the site, get a better perspective on what's needed. There is a plan being set up and in the works, and I can report that out at a future event, but it is in process right now. I know, Brent, you referenced that the BSV2 project is also working on something, and if we're not already coordinated, we will.
Yep. All right. So I just want to do a time check, everyone. We're at 4:55. We've had some really good feedback here. I think really thank you for your thoughts. This is helpful. I think that we'd have one more time for one more comment. If anyone wanted to share and just acknowledge that, when we next meet, we will have more time for conversation and hopefully some check-ins with you all in between as well, possibly. Did anyone have anything else burning? Could I get a quick thumbs up to see if people felt like this exercise was helpful and a little more free-flowing? So thumbs up if you felt like it was. Maybe a sideways thumb if you think it was VTA's pretty good attempt. Any thumbs down? No. Okay. Thumbs up. People felt it was helpful. Okay. So thank you for that feedback. I think then we will move into the polling section. So we have a couple of questions to ask you. And then we'll be doing a quick couple project updates after this. Okay. So we could move to the poll here on the screen. We want to make sure, like I said earlier, that we get your feedback on some specific questions. And so we'll be walking you through a series of questions. You should be seeing them on your screen. If you don't, please verbalize that or put that in the chat. Looks like everyone can see that. No one's, I don't see anything in the chat, so. All right, so first question, one that's come up, and we want to just check in one more time. How would you like to resume in-person, or would you like to resume in-person CWG meetings? A couple of us talked about that here tonight.
Clarifying question. If they are in person, would they also be available over Zoom?
I think we're open to that. So do we want to have a series of all in-person hybrid meetings? If you don't see the option that works for you, Damone, or your community, just put it in the chat. We'll take that feedback and add it.
Okay. Yeah, I think hybrid would be ideal. Personally.
Some other groups want to meet sometimes in person and sometimes on Zoom, and no hybrid option. So, there's a range. Okay. So has everyone had a chance to answer question 1? I would like to just make sure you all see answers back to you all.
I think that we need folks to continue submitting their votes.
Okay, we got
For
2
question
people
1, we have
answering
2
question
people.
1 now.
Mhm.
Got 5, 6 CWG members on here, so. More feedback is helpful. We can share that with our board when we report back to them in a month or so. So yes, we're seeing 3. Okay, yes. Okay, all right.
I answered all the questions and hit submit, so you should have all my answers there.
Okay, great.
Thanks, David.
Me too.
Okay. We see three folks have answered for every question.
Yeah, thanks for helping me out, Marissa.
No problem.
All right, I'll just read out question 2 too, while you guys are still going through that. If you would like in-person CWG meetings, how often would you like to attend? So if we have just in-person meetings, would you like to attend in person every time? Maybe this gets to your question, Damone. I'd commit to in-person. Oh, I can't see the whole question here. Every other meeting? I could commit to meeting in person just once a year. So that's a helpful space if you maybe can't commit to meeting in person every time for us. It looks like almost probably everyone's answered that question, so thank you. I prefer to have an option between in-person and virtual, okay? So just for the members here, we're kind of seeing a split, right? So there's definitely an interest in having in-person meetings. There's also an interest in having some possibly in-person with a virtual option, it looks like. Okay. All right, question 3, just to review, is this my preference? This is my preference on CWG meeting format. I like the current meeting format with staff facilitation. I prefer to shift a meeting format towards external. That's really important. So that's something we've heard from you all. And just want to recognize that previously we had third-party professionally facilitated meetings for many years. And interest from this group to potentially return to that format. So thank you. Would you be interested in a pre-meeting networking time with CWG members, project staff, and invited presenters? So this is kind of getting at what I think, David, you were talking about, right? It's that intro time when you can mix and mingle and build a relationship amongst yourselves, right? Have dialogue with each other as leaders, but also with staff and get to know us better and us you better, right? So that we can build that relationship with you all. The answer is yes, this is important to us. And then next, would you like to review project documents prior to the meeting? A resounding yes. So we've admitted that we haven't been the best at this in our past few meetings, right? That in past meetings, we had, shared materials in advance, and there is clearly still interest that is what the preference would be.
And I see that on the back end, 6 folks have answered every question. So that's really great participation. I think that if we're okay, then what we'll do next is we will end the poll so that we can go ahead and showcase what you all answered. So Monica, do you want to go ahead and close out the poll and share the answers? Share people's votes.
Yeah, that was my bad. I'm sorry. I thought they were being able to see that real time.
Yes,
No
it's
worries.
closed and it should be sharing. Can I get confirmation though that people can see the results?
It can be seen.
Great, thank you.
So you're all able to scroll through this? Thumbs up if you can. Great. I read back most of this to you all as I went through the questions. So team, can we make sure when we share back meeting notes and things to the community that we give the poll results back to folks too? so they have it for their reference as well. Okay. All right. Really appreciate that. We're going to transition to a little bit of presentation now at the end of the meeting, and then we'll still have some time at the end for you all to do some sharing as well on other things that are happening in your community. Really appreciate the honesty tonight and just being open and helping us improve our dialogue in our CWG meetings. So round of applause for you all. Okay. Next up, we have update on the board referral. This one's important.
Let's go ahead and pass it on to Bernice to speak on our 28th Street Little Portugal station facilities. And I'm just going to make sure, Bernice, you're still online. Okay. This one's for you, Bernice. And let us know if you're running into any issues with hearing us.
And maybe she's not with us.
Yeah, she
It's
might be
okay. All right.
disconnected.
I can probably cover this for the group. So for those that don't know, we received a board referral from the board at the last board meeting, and a referral is direction to staff to accomplish a thing. And so they sent us a memo asking us to do a couple things. We have two. Go ahead. Oh, Bernice, are you with us now? Nope. Okay.
Can you hear us, Bernice?
So we were given specific direction on the following things.
I'm sorry, I lost the connection. Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay. One is to further review locating what we've called in the past back of house facilities, or sometimes we're now referring to them as station facilities underground. So if all the options, we need to look at all options for how we potentially need to do that. And we have A, B, and C here on the screen. So we need to basically go back with our technical team and review requirements for things that we can and cannot do underground, and report those back to the ground. These are facilities that are key to kind of running the station. So there are things like your fire suppression systems, your batteries, your generators, your electrical facilities, and those large kind of working facilities. So we've been asked to provide kind of an in-depth presentation to our oversight committee. Our oversight committee particularly receives items just on this project, and to this working group here. So the board has asked us to report back to you all on reasons why we can or cannot put things underground. We've also been asked to look at this station in comparison to the downtown station and its back of house as well. B, we've also been asked to figure out how to minimize the back of house footprint next to the head house. So the head house is where you enter the station and go down, and provide, again, another in-depth presentation to the oversight committee, and include in that the back of house facility and what factors influence their placement. So where are things located? Why do they have to be there? We've been asked to do a little more digging, which is why we basically have the next month or two to do additional work for you all. The third thing is design of the station and surrounding transit-oriented development, with a plaza that maximizes opportunities for community activation, reactivation, and access to open space. All right. Do we have any questions from anyone? Okay. So plan for us to be reporting back out to this group on these very important decisions for the project moving forward. Bernice, if you're with us, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you you covered it well. I do think it's important.
Yeah, unfortunately, sorry tonight, folks. Bernice is in critical transit at this time, so.
To operations. Can you not hear me?
Yeah, we can't hear you too well, unfortunately, Bernice.
Sorry. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. All right, if you all have any questions as we move forward, you can put those in the chat, let us know, and we'll make sure we will follow up with each of you, okay?
Great. Thank you, Brent, for that.
Yep.
I'll proceed to pass it on to Erica to give us some insight on some of our early construction activities.
Great. Excuse me. Great. Thank you. As we've talked about before, now we have begun initial construction activities at the West Portal site in VTA's New Hall Yard. Site grading began this month, and as they're grading the large site starting at the south end, moving towards the north end. Associated with grading is some vibrations and noise that will occur during the day, all of which we have sent out construction notices for the surrounding area. So I'll cover that in the next slide. So we've been meeting with stakeholders in the area, and what we've been talking about, this upcoming construction that I've been talking to you all about for over the last year is what's now beginning. So this is just the first stage of what we've talked about previously. I talked about kind of the next 2-year period. And so just this month is the start of that 2-year period that we've been talking about for the activities to grade the site and then develop the roads in the site, within the site, and construct the west portal where the tunnel boring machine will be assembled and then launched from. Also, this period eventually will include the construction of the tunnel lining fabrication location, as well as where the segments will be stored, and the excavated material bin will be constructed as well. So we'll continue to give you updates here as the construction activities change and progress. But for the next couple of months, this is what activities will be happening at the site. Next slide. So in general, wanted to, we had some discussion earlier about construction notices. And so just wanted to re-summarize for you all here what's included in the notices that we send out. It's the 4 W's. So the what, where the construction activity is, what the summary of the construction activity and where, the location of where it is on a map, when, the interval of dates and times, and if there's going to be nighttime or weekend work, we note that in there as well, is what to expect. The activity and anticipated effects that the community would feel, whether there's especially noisy or dusty or sidewalk closures, parking impacts, whatever the case may be, those are items that we include in the notice. So in the next slide, we have the example notice we talked about earlier about the work that's going to be occurring on North 30th Street. And appreciate your collaboration, Damone, with Cristo Ray, and apologies that you all had to find out about the notice the way that you did, but we've internally working through our systems, and that won't be the case moving forward. But there will be activity happening there. We're able to work together, and the activities will happen outside of the school pickup drop-off time. The work will be between 9 and 3, but they're going to end the work on North 30th Street at 1 p.m. so it doesn't interfere with the school pickup. And there'll be 1 lane of traffic open with flaggers in the area to direct traffic. So this is an example of what it looks like. You can see the map and then what's going to be happening over on the left. So these get distributed through, on the next slide, various channels that we have electronically through MailChimp. We send out notifications to our CWG members. Moving forward, when there's activities happening adjacent, we will be reaching out via phone and having direct contact with you all, if there is especially potentially impactful activities to coordinate and work around things like the school pickup schedule. In addition, we have physical flyers that are distributed within a 1,000-foot radius of the construction activity. I think this might be my last slide as it relates to kind of the upcoming activities. But happy to answer any questions that you all may have as it relates to construction activities. There are no other planned construction activities that we're aware of in the 28th Street area. in the coming months. I know you mentioned that, asked that earlier, Damone, but if there is something that comes up that we're aware of, we'll definitely be sure to reach out to you and others directly.
Yeah, a few questions. So it says distribute via MailChimp to all stakeholders, and those stakeholders are the folks listed in the next bullet. Is that right?
The stakeholders are everyone who has signed up to get updates about our project. So we have a general distribution list of people who have signed up for information. We also include emails to the CWG members and the various groups below. So it's a different subset.
Okay, and then you said that there is a 1,000-foot radius that you provide flyers to. Is that right?
Correct.
So I think in this case, like the 1,000-foot radius would cover like the 101, would cover like the Barnard facility. I don't think that families that would be directly impacted would get that information. How would you account for that in your communication strategy?
So that is something where we would communicate with you all, and then we could coordinate with you on what's the best way to communicate to your families, whether that's you then pushing it out to distribution lists you have, or if there's a way, happy to coordinate with you to figure out the best way to get that communication out further.
Okay, and then timing. So I think, right, one of the concerns around this time, and you said things will be different going forward, but what is your ideal time frame to communicate information like this going forward?
As soon as we learn about the information, we would reach out to you to let you know as we're developing the construction notice to say, hey, we learned this is happening. Wanted to let you know, make sure that it doesn't have, figure out a way that we could work together on it to then come up with a solution so that we could then include the information where we eventually got that they're going to stop the work early. So just to not affect the school pickup time, or things like that. So that could be included in the notice.
Okay. I think.
Are you asking how far in advance, Damone? Sorry, just to clarify. No,
I was asking how far in advance. Yeah.
Generally, we like to notice at least we have a 2-week minimum notice period from when it's the notices are distributed. And if we, depending on the activity, some things we know of much farther in advance, and other things we only learn about a day or so before the time when we need to post the notice. So as soon as we find out whether it's closer to 14 days or maybe it's much farther out, we would coordinate with you. Does that help clarify a little bit more?
I think it does. I think I'm having some trouble imagining a scenario where it would be a couple days before. And so if you
before the two-week notice period.
Oh, I see. Before the 2-week notice period. Okay.
Yeah, before the 2-week notice period is what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we consistently internally remind our contractor and our construction management team, we call them, is, look, as the communicators who you're interfacing with here, there's work that has to be done before the notice goes out, right? So team, you must tell us well in advance of 2 weeks so that we can actually properly inform you all. And that's a drum that we constantly beat on to let them know that internally we have to do a good job as well. So we will continue voicing that we get information in advance.
Okay, I think we can take this offline, but I think if there are things that are, as close to our school as this is, that we probably want to set up some system to have a conversation around it.
More personal.
Make sure
Definitely,
that the right stakeholders from our school are involved in that conversation prior to the impact happening.
Will do, yes. We'll set up a time to get that all figured out and set up so we can use those avenues moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, and likewise, the church, has significant events, not just the church, but the IES hall. And, the church and the hall need to be apprised of
That's definitely
activities.
Agree. Mm-hmm.
Please don't do anything on the last weekend in June. That's the annual IES festival.
Yes, and that's where, if you recall, we came and did some access and service needs interviews with a lot of the adjacent businesses and institutions and gathered great information such as that. That's included in our construction transportation management plans and is our team's top of mind for activities that we know will be happening in the area so that we can be sure to alert the contractor teams of what we know is happening so that they can avoid days like that.
Thank you. And yes, I remember that was a while back that we submitted that. In fact, this weekend, there is an activity that we're processing from 27th and East St. James to North 28th and down to the church. It's a religious celebration. So yeah, stuff happens.
Yes, for sure.
It's not necessarily, I don't know that I put that one on your radar, frankly.
Yeah, right. I was not trying to say that we know about everything that would be on the radar. I was just acknowledging that we do reach out and we do care and we do try and track that as much as we can. So
yeah, that one for this weekend fell through the cracks, I'm sure.
All right. I think that's it for me then. Marissa, back to you.
Thank you, Erica. Thanks for that update there on construction activities. We will then now move forward with phase 2 update and pass the baton to Bernice, who I'm not sure if she's able to connect. Bernice, are you there? Yes, we can hear you.
Am I audible now? Okay.
Okay. Passing it over to you, Bernice.
Okay, we've seen this construction and major project schedule before, but just wanted to sort of show you where we are right now and where we will be. The area in the pink, 24-25, we started our early works at the West Portal about 2 weeks ago, and that work's commencing, and we will be doing a event there to acknowledge the early works groundbreaking on June 14th. Following that, after about 1.5 years of site preparatory to prepare for the tunnel boring machine arrival and launch, then major construction will commence running through the 2034 timeframe. We
you could allow
about 2 years integrate the new extension with the existing. Can you hear me again? I am sorry.
Yes, we can hear you.
System testing integration is about 2 years, and that brings us to a passenger service date of 2037. That 2039 date is a contingency that the Federal Transit Administration has asked us to put in, and that is the date that our full funding grant agreement terms. We have to have per our terms of our grant agreement contract, we have to have the project completed by 2039. This shows our path to that critical full funding grant agreement, and the areas that have the green checks are the key activities that we've accomplished. And you will see we submitted our request to enter into New Starts Engineering back in March. There are various phases of the process to secure a full funding grant agreement. So this was a significant milestone back in March. They will now review those materials. There's some back and forth. And then later this summer, June of 2024, next month, we will seek approval to enter into the last and final phase, and that's the New Starts Engineering. Then once we meet that criteria, a month later, we would submit our application for the full funding grant agreement, approximately $6 billion. And the goal is to get a fully executed full funding grant agreement. In that agreement, it basically specifies the amount annually of the allocations, the terms of the allocation, and the schedule for the project. So the goal ultimately is to get that before the end of the year and before there's any possible changes in the current administration. Next slide, please. Just wanted to share some really good news. Last week on Thursday, we received notice that the project was allocated $500 million out of the federal funding FY24 budget, President's budget for this project. That is a nod to the merits of this project, that the federal government, the FTA, still fully supports this project. This $500 million would be our first allocation of the ultimate amount we get through that full funding grant agreement. So now the next 6 months, as I stated before, are really critical. It's where we need advocacy for the project. We really need to raise those project benefits, because getting the full funding grant agreement is the last piece for us to then go and advance into major construction. We were given a notice of intent that they intend to fund, and we were given permission to incur the costs that we've incurred to date. But securing the full funding grant agreement really is the final and last step to project delivery. And we can go on to the next slide. I think this slide is very helpful and useful because it really shows where the different funding goes to the project. And as you can see, the track elements and the guideway and the tunnel, that's nearly $3 billion. So that is a significant amount for the project. These are the funding categories that the Federal Transit Administration has us track our costs by. Stations, as you can see, is about $2 billion. The yard and shops, about $350 million. All of the site work that's preparing and doing all the boring and excavating, nearly $600 million. Systems, those are all the things that are required to actually make the system functional, the communications, the ventilation, the electricity, all of that. And then there is all the properties that we need to acquire. The vehicles, as you know, we just got permission from the board direction to pursuing a contract agreement with BART to be part of their last shipment of rail cars. And then, as you see, we are required to have some contingency, and that's what comprises the $12.7 billion.
Thank you, Bernice. Let's go ahead and open it up to any questions that folks could have on this section. Any questions for Bernice on the updates that she just shared?
Yeah, we used to have kind of a financial update from the financial guy. I forget his name. He hasn't been around for a while. And questions
Mike.
like, okay. Questions that come to mind, obviously, are it's an election year. If a new administration comes in, does it tank this project? To be blunt.
That's a very good question. I mean, one of the reasons we're going for getting that full funding grant agreement prior to the end of the year is because we want to lock that in case there are any changes in the administration. So there is not any history of a single project that has a full funding grant agreement in place where any administration has changed those. It's like a contractual agreement that the project would get this amount of money for this many years, and these are like 1 year you get 500 million, the next 600 million. They have never ever, whether it's been a Republican or Democratic administration, changed the terms of those grants. So that is why a new administration execution is critical to the project. And back to the finance, we'd be happy. It was Mike Smith. He did several, and that right now is when we submit that application for the full funding grant, that will be that is our set budget. That is the exact amount that we'll be requesting. So I'd be happy. I think we're going to do, we're planning on doing maybe one summer meeting, and we could have Mike Smith maybe come and do an update on the financial plan if you're interested.
It's a similar report out that our committee will get. So, the information is available, and we can provide an update to the CWG.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm looking through the list here for any raised hands. Looking through the chat box. Okay, anything else before we move on to CWG member report out? Alrighty, we'll move on to the next section then. So as we're getting ready to close out, we're giving you all an opportunity to also share a little bit more about what you've been up to when it comes to having conversations and dialogue with your constituents. What has that been looking like for you? What are you facing as you're sharing the information? Have there been challenges, opportunities that you want to share here? This is all some space and time for you all. Okay, I'm going to open up the floor.
Yeah, it's been interesting sharing, even among each other. I mean, I shared some stuff with Issa this morning and then Damone a little while later. So we kind of were on the same page coming into this meeting. But even just learning stuff from George Honore, and I'm not going to belabor that point, should it come from VTA, but people are still asking, is it going to happen? When's it going to happen? Because they're seeing, businesses, one company, the fence company's left. So it's like, hey, there's stuff going on. And then next week, there'll be some construction, obviously, on 30th Street. But people are still asking, and we're still answering, or at least I'm still answering with the current status of where things are.
So what do you think is needed, David, there for folks to be able to get more of that information that the project is happening? Do you have thoughts on that?
Well, there are newsletters. For instance, the Portuguese Community Center has a monthly newsletter. And although it doesn't have a ton of space for additional news, a brief blurb perhaps through Elsa Oliveira, who you're now going to be including on the CWG meetings. We have a Portuguese language radio station that we can put updates out on in the community bulletin. That's a daily community bulletin, twice a day. And I'm the conduit for that too. My parents own the radio station. There are conduits at Mexican Heritage Plaza. Chris, if you're still on the line, I'm sure you have ways to communicate with your constituents, and Somos Mayfair, obviously, who's not here today, but I'm sure they must have ways to communicate out to their demographic.
So, David, if I could ask maybe like maybe some in between less formal updates, like 100, 150 words occasionally, like in between the more formal project emails would be helpful for the leaders here. So those things could be kind of just quickly shared with your channels that you have available to you. Like, hey, there's not construction, but there are these things. We have businesses that are changing over as VTA is beginning to take some of the property for the future station into its possession, those kinds of things. Just little tidbits, maybe it sounds like.
Yeah, the church has a weekly bulletin too, paper and online. So there are a lot of conduits that you can use. So you put previously over communication. Yeah, over communicate. Let us decide what we release to our constituencies.
Okay, thank you.
As a co-president of the Santa Clara Alum Rock Business Association, we've been doing a lot of business walks, and we talk into the business, let them know. But if you collect more information we can pass to them. Also, we had a business mix with all the business in the corridor. And we had almost maybe 85 or 90 people there. And somebody, I think the VTA was there too, so it was a good information. So, but we're doing a lot of business walk. More information we collect, and if you guys email us all the updates, and it's easier for me to pass to the business because we do a lot of business walks. So
that's great insight. Thank you, David and Helen. Just jotting down notes over here for ourselves, for our internal team. What else are people gauging as they're having these conversations about the project with their community members? Damone, thoughts? Luis? Further convos? Or Marisa, feel free to chime in. Or drop it in the chat.
Yeah, Cristo Rey has a regular various channels to notify their families and staff of what's going on. I mean, and they have a daily, essentially, school bulletin that goes over the air to the classrooms as well. Everybody has ways to let their constituencies know what's going on.
Good to know. School bulletin daily. Okay. For the students at Cristo Rey.
So we walked in, at the end of the Alum Rock, and one business said that this business is going down because people already talked about the BART, the VTA, the BART coming, and people stopped going there. So we need more clarification for these people, because they assuming that's gonna happen today or tomorrow, and those business need more information. So that's what we're here for, but we want to get more information.
Okay.
So.
And have a single point of contact for you all. So like Helen, if you were to hear something like that, you would know that you could call me, or you could call Marissa, or you could call whoever that is for you and get just directly that information. I think is helpful, especially as we move into construction.
Yeah, it sounds good. If you guys can send, like your contact information by email, it'll be easier for us to reach you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is a phone tree might be very beneficial here for folks. Okay, thank you. That's been very informative. Thank you all for participating there on this section, and thank you, Christina, for that time check note on our chat box. We do want to be respectful of people's time, so I'll just move on to the next slide then, which will close out our session here together. So upcoming meetings, we do have our upcoming CWG dates. We have our quarterly CWG meeting that will be taking place September 11th. But we are noting there, the first bullet above that there is a 28th Year Little Portugal additional meeting that will be happening. TBD there, we're not exactly sure about when that will be in the summer, but that is something that we're looking to get a better gauge of. So as soon as we formalize the date on that, you will be informed, but that is coming up. We also have a series of VTA Board of Directors meetings, which you can always go check out the vta.org website to get more information on the agenda, get information about how to join the meeting, and all the discussion points that will be shared there. So the next upcoming meeting is June 6th for the Board of Directors, and then we have a few oversight committee meetings happening in June, the next one in July, and then the following Board of Directors meeting will take place in August, and a few other committee meetings there listed. And then the final bullet there, just a reminder that I know Kristen has been your point of contact for CWG, so she will continue to alert you via email about any other upcoming meetings that are coming up for this team or this group. And you're, of course, always welcome to reach out to her directly, phone call, email. I'm wondering if in the Zoom meeting you might be able to get our email, but I think what a lot of folks stated is just the opportunity to have direct contact to some of the other BSV staff members. So that is information that we're taking internally, and we will be able to then share that phone tree that we just talked about. So with that,
just real quick, yes, Marissa, if I may, I just noticed there is an additional VTA board meeting on June 28th. So we will get that added to this list before we distribute it electronically, but I just noticed that it wasn't there and wanted to mention. So go ahead, back to you.
Perfect. Thank you for that note, Erica. Okay. So before we end and close the meeting, any other last comments or remarks before we close out and go enjoy the rest of our evenings? Yes, Helen.
I'm just saying thank you. Thank you for the meeting. It was great.
Thank you, Helen. Thanks for attending. Thank you all for attending. being a
Thank you
part
all
of
for
it.
sharing tonight.
and
Appreciate it.
sharing.
Thanks all.
Alrighty. With that, we will close. Have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you at the next one. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.